Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. We are here with our news dump today. And what are we news dumping on Friday? Well, time to find out with our headlines. Today on Before Coffee, Zelensky gets millions in US, but not missiles he asked for.
Oh no. And California is getting another one of them atmospheric rivers. Get ready for that.
EU is using aid to stop migration rather than poverty, report says. And there's pirates in Oakland.
And the United States Senate finally starts confirming officers for promotion, blocking Tommy Tuberville.
And we look at the penis scandal that outraged the nation in our culture news.
And all that and more on today, which is National... Hold on. It is... it is National Ice Cream Cone Day on September 22nd, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
Okay, on National Girls Night as well, I guess. We're
It's
going
your
to talk about
birthday.
our news coming out of Europe. We're going to do the two stories about Zelensky and about the EU because they're very, very short. I'm going to sneeze.
Right.
Of course, I sneeze as soon as I go live. Okay. First story. Zelensky gets millions in US, but not the missiles he asked for. This is from NOS News. Ukrainian President Zelensky has raised millions in support at the White House, but will still be somewhat disappointed with the preliminary outcome of his visit to Washington. He has to go home without a promise of American ATCMS missiles. Ukraine has been lobbying for these missiles, which have a range of 300 kilometers, for many months. Kyiv was hopeful that it would work this time, but the White House again did not budge. Security Advisor Sullivan did explicitly say that the option remained on the table for Washington. President Biden emphasized that the U.S. will continue to support the Ukraine in the fight against Russia. Biden also explicitly promised to assist Ukraine with air defense. He recalled that Russia targeted Ukrainian citizens last year with attacks on electricity companies. The White House expects the Kremlin to opt for the tactic again. The Ukrainian people have to brace themselves, but we stand by their side. These commitments were overshadowed by the critical attitude of some Republicans in Congress. For example, Republican Speaker of House Representatives Kevin McCarthy did not want to make any comments about the aid to Ukraine. While the Ukrainian president received a strong standing ovation from the Senate and House last time, this time he was not allowed to address Congress at all. McCarthy denied Zelensky's request due to time constraints. Their consultations took place behind closed doors. According to CNN, the House Speaker tried to avoid being photographed with Zelensky. Some Republicans prioritized domestic projects. McCarthy repeated after the conversation with Zelensky, because his party has a majority in the House, he can block another request from Biden for $24 billion. However, the president said after meeting with Zelensky that he trusted common sense at the opposition party. There is no alternative. And in more short EU news, a report published this week by Oxfam found that the EU is increasingly using foreign aid to externalize its borders rather than promote development and eradicate poverty, a finding that suggests the EU is falling short of the international standards on aid funding. European aid is being used as a tool to stop migration instead of what it's meant for, stopping poverty. Stephanie Pope, Oxfam's EU migration expert, said in a statement. The report delved into 16 programs related to migration in Niger, Libya, and Tunisia, finding that 6 of them potentially breached the OECD standards on foreign aid. In total, the funding provided for these 6 programs was around 667 million euros. Of the 8 active analyzed in Niger, for example, only 1 support safe and regular migration. In a country where up to 40% of people live in extreme poverty, aid is being routed to slam the brakes on migration to Europe, said Konate Papa Sotene, the country's director at Oxfam, Niger. The report also noted that transparency was limited when it comes to how the EU spends aid funds, with explanations being often plagued by absence of clear definitions. When it comes to migration, in many cases, we are in the dark about how EU taxpayer funds meant to combat poverty are actually being used, said Pope. So there's your 2 updates here from Europe. On to your story.
All right, we're going to be covering weather, which we do sometimes because it's always happening and it's kind of neutral politically. Don't care what your politics is. If there's a storm coming, you got problems. And we're having one of them atmospheric weather systems hitting California again. If you remember last winter when they got buried in snow, and then the spring rains caused flooding, and then they got more huge weather systems, and then California actually got a hurricane this year, which they never get. Well, atmospheric rivers headed to California. An upcoming storm, this is from the San Francisco Chronicle. An upcoming storm will center itself on the West Coast on Sunday night and into Monday, tapping into an atmospheric river that will usher in strong winds and heavy rain much of the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Astronomical fall begins Friday night, and autumn storms are already knocking on California's door. A major September storm is forecast to bring heavy rains and strong winds in Washington, Oregon, Northern California beginning on Sunday night. Heavy rains expected Monday in Seattle, Portland, Redding, and Eureka, which could challenge some September rainfall records. Well, the headline should say California. They should say Pacific Northwest, because most of these places aren't in California. The soaking rain is likely in North Bay, while the lighter showers extended to the peninsula, East Bay, and Santa Clara Valley. Those are all around San Francisco. Rainfall totals in Northern California are likely to range 1 to 5 inches in the lowlands, up to 6 inches in the coastal range, and up to above 1,000 feet. Strong winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour are also possible with this storm. Weather models predict the jet stream will strengthen across the west coast on Monday. The jet stream will push strong wind and rain towards coastal Washington and California. The jet stream is forecast to strengthen across the Pacific Ocean this weekend, pushing atmospheric river all the way from Japan to the western U.S. Atmospheric rivers are ribbons of moisture that can ferry large amounts of moisture thousands of miles through the sky. The weather models predict a strong low-pressure system will interact with the atmospheric river, condensing it into heavy precipitation as it slams into the west coast. This low-pressure system is quite strong in the forecast for this event, said Chad Hecht, a meteorologist with the Center for Western Weather and Western Extremes at UC San Diego's Scripps Institution of Oceanography. But it's mostly forecast to stay offshore and kind of spin around the coast of Alaska and British Columbia and not move onshore until the weekend. On Sunday, rain associated with the system's warm front will move from south to north across southern Oregon, or Oregon, as some people call it, to the Canadian border. By Sunday night, showers will turn widespread heavy rain along the coast as the cold front approaches California. So weather is happening constantly, and this is going to be a little bit more severe than most rainstorms, so we'll keep an eye on this. They haven't named it. They're going to start naming these things. Maybe. I mean, it's an atmospheric river. It's like a hurricane. Dumps a lot of rain. You know, they say love is like a flood. Nah, it holds a lot of rain. I don't know. This is from a song. The Everly Brothers and Nazareth covered it. Love hurts. You know that song. Anyway, your story.
Okay. In Oakland, pirates becoming more brazen as several ships stolen in a span of a week. This is from CBS News Bay Area by John Ramos. The threat of pirates ransacking boats in Oakland estuary marinas has risen to a new level. Thefts are becoming more brazen and more costly. Meanwhile, residents say they've given up on relying on the police for help. Stephen Young outfitted his boat, the Bay Escape, to serve as a survival craft in case of a large earthquake or disaster. But that plan was sunk recently when thieves stole the 40-foot Sea Ray yacht from its slip at the Embarcadero Cove Marina. They spotted it a few days later, stuck on some nearby rocks with people still aboard. Young called the police. "I told them somebody's on the boat. They're moving it as we speak," recalled Young. "Can you just go down and impound it?" The police gave us. "Well, do you have a police report?" I said, "Well, no, we just found it. It's grounded. There's people on it. Can you do anything?" They said, "We can't do anything. You need to do is get a police report." Young said the police never came. He said it wasn't until days later when the insurance company called them that the boat was recovered, but by then it was too late. "What they did to the boat was unbelievable," Young said. "Normally you'd expect them to take the dinghy and your liquor and stuff like that, but they took the fishing poles, they took the fighting chairs, they took the barbecue pits, and everything they didn't take, they destroyed. They stole GPS equipment, bilge pumps, engine parts, and 3 handguns with ammunition. Closet doors were torn off and even compartments were trashed. They also left behind a number of hypodermic needles and the message, 'I love Jesse,' scrawled in bleach on the couch cushions. The insurance company said the boat is a total loss, but it's not the only one. 2 other large boats were stolen the same week. And then, a few days later, someone in the marina had to defend themselves with guns against the pirates. And that's where it is right now," said Michael West. "Everybody here has a gun or a knife, or a sword or a stick or something, to protect themselves." Yeah, because sticks really good against pirates. "I've got this boat oar and I'm not afraid to use it." West lives aboard a ship and said the crime coming from people living on boats anchored out in the estuary has turned the entire area into a Wild West environment, especially since the city of Oakland has only one man, Officer Kelly Albino, who knows how to operate the boat to protect the harbors. "Fighting crime out here on the waters is tough. He's a pirate. I don't know why I'm giving you a pirate accent. As I only have one full-time marine officer, that's myself," said Albino. "But the City of Oakland Police Department, we tend to make things work with what we have, and I've been training appropriately 10 other maritime officers on how to operate the vessel, so the vessel is available more hours than just myself being here. But so far, that hasn't happened, and the people living on the waterfront feel like they're on their own." Young said he's had enough. His boat couldn't survive the earthquake of crime shaking Oakland. Once the insurance company pays for the loss, he's gone. As for West, he and his neighbors know this isn't petty crime anymore, so they'll band together to do whatever they must to protect themselves. "So we don't even bother to call the police anymore," said West. "See, we're going to handle it ourselves. There is plenty of crime happening all over Oakland. Those who live in the water feel like castaways on a deserted island, left to fend for themselves with no one coming to rescue." And that's our story about the pirates in Oakland. Shiver me timbers. On to yours.
Not a lot of people know this, but pirates, and they wore eye patches, not because they were missing an eye, but because your eye has to adjust to the darkness below a ship deck. And if your eye's already adjusted... Anyway, little pirate trivia. And on to traitor news. Let's call him a traitor, or maybe a terrorist. Tommy Tuberville. Lots of things start with T. I think terrorist Tommy, or Tommy the terrorist. Terrorist Tommy. Let's go terrorist Tommy Tuberville, who is a senator from Alabama. Oh yes, Alabama, making our country proud. This is from NPR. The U.S. Senate finally confirmed General C.Q. Brown as top military officer despite Tuberville's roadblock. Yes, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff nominee, General Charles Brown Jr. was finally confirmed. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff nominee, Charles Brown Jr. arrives at the Capitol after his confirmation hearing U.S. Senators in July. Well, that's a picture description. U.S. Air Force General C.Q. Brown has been a combat pilot and chief of the Air Force and distinguished military career that has spanned 4 decades. His latest mission, and one of the more challenging ones, is winning Senate confirmation as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, despite the efforts of Alabama Senator terrorist Tommy Tuberville, who has been blocking hundreds of military nominations. To get past terrorist Tommy's months-long hold on nominees, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer finally did something. Forced a full Senate vote on Brown, who was confirmed on Wednesday evening 83-11. Boy, he was controversial. 11 people voted against him. Wow, 11 people think he doesn't deserve a job. Oh, you're a general, but we can't have you running things. No. Whatever. The chamber voted, I'm sure the 11 people never served in the military. I guarantee it. The chamber voted Thursday on 2 more military nominations. Senate Democrats moved to circumvent Senator terrorist Tommy, who has maintain a months-long hold on hundreds of military promotions. Brown's confirmation comes just days before outgoing Chairman Army General Mark Miley is required to step down after 4 years in the post. Brown's elevation also comes at a crucial moment in a war with Ukraine. As you mentioned earlier, Vladimir Zelensky met with the House on Wednesday and the Senate on Wednesday morning and then visited the Pentagon. Zelensky is calling for additional military assistance as Ukraine presses its offensive against Russian troops in the south and east of the country. The Biden administration is seeking a new round of military, financial, and humanitarian aid totaling $24 billion. Most members of Congress have supported such assistance to this point, but there's growing opposition from the far right who has no conscience. Another challenge for facing Brown are the hundreds of other military officers still awaiting Senate confirmation for their promotions. They are normally approved quick and easily in large batches, but Tuberville, terrorist Tommy, has halted the process for the past several months. He's holding up nominations because he objects to the Pentagon policy that helps military service members travel to receive abortion care if they are stationed in a place where abortions are restricted. You're right. Tommy, terrorist Tommy, wants our military members to die. That's what he wants them to do. He wants them to die. If you're pregnant and you've had trouble with pregnancy, he wants you to die. Tommy Tuberville is a terrorist. Terrorist Tommy is a terrorist. More than 300 nominations are currently frozen, and that number could double by the end of the year, according to the military officials. Schumer can call a vote on each individual nomination, which he should. Should just keep them in session. Vote, vote, vote. If you don't want to vote, then don't be in the Senate. You know? Don't get a job where you're a senator if you don't want to vote. The Senate on Thursday confirmed the nomination of General Randy George to be Chief of Staff of the Army in a vote of 96-1. Guess who the one was? I bet you it was terrorist Tommy. And by an 83-11 vote, General Eric Smith to be the Commandant of the Marine Corps. I'm guessing that he's probably black, and that's why there's 10 people. I'm just throwing that out there. One party has a real problem with race for some reason. I don't know. To me, we're all Americans, but they just don't want anybody to know that everybody's got a different shade or something. I don't know. John Kirby, spokesperson of the National Security Council, said Wednesday that approving a few top officers would be a positive step, but not enough to solve a larger issue. It doesn't fix the problem or provide a path forward to the 316 other general and flag officers that are held up by this ridiculous hold, Kirby said. He added that the progress with the nomination was good for the United States Marines, certainly good for the United States Army, and good for the Joint Staff, but it ain't good enough for the United States national security. These holds need to be lifted, all of them. That takes one person, and the Senate has stupid rules where a moron like Tommy Tuberville can hold up military promotions for people that have given up their entire lives to defend his stupid, selfish, racist, terrorist country ass. Your story.
In culture news, he swam hooking my arm with his penis inside the dolphin sex scandal that outraged the nation. This is from Nell Frizzle on The Guardian. When someone mentions the year 1990, you might think of the last day of Margaret Thatcher, satanic verses, poll tax, recession in the IRA, or you just might think of a man in the northeast of England getting arrested for masturbating a dolphin. I wasn't here for this, but this supposedly happened in the 1990s. The man in question was the animal rights campaigner Alan Cooper. One of the witnesses to the alleged incident was the owner of the Flamingo Land Dolphinarium, Peter Bloom. The site was the North Sea. The whole intriguing story has now been turned into a podcast series by journalist Becky Milligan, who, it turns out, actually swam with the very same wild, ball-nosed dolphin named Freddie back in 1990. I was a student at a city, University of London, doing audio, Milligan tells me over Zoom. We were meant to do our first documentary there. Was this story about people with very serious mental health problems being cured by swimming with wild dolphins. Not in California or Florida, as you might assume, but in Amble, small fishing port 15 miles or 24 kilometers north of Morpeth in Northumberland. So I got on the train with my tape recorder all the way up to Amble. She says she met Gordon, a friendly lifeboat mechanic, who boated her out to sea with one of her friends. They absolutely covered me in talcum powder and put me in a huge dry suit, which blew up. I was literally like a big balloon. That had given me a lead to stop me flying off. Freddie the dolphin was totally wild, and it is no exaggeration to say that his arrival in Amble temporarily transformed the town. Suddenly, alongside out-of-work miners and struggling fishermen, the harbor was swarmed with women in bikinis, New Age hippies with dolphins, tattoos, and crystals, Southerners who couldn't understand anybody's accent, and at one point a man in a caftan sitting on the harbor while playing a didgeridoo for hours. As Freddie swam into the harbor, it was like he brought in a rainbow, says Milligan, but it was also an influx of people with very different cultures. Perhaps the person who swam most regular with Freddie was Cooper, a Manchester-born animal rights campaigner. Cooper, who had become a vegan in 1982, was a committed member of the Northern Animal Liberation League, seemed to have a special bond with the bottlenose dolphin, and the two would spend hours together in the water. When on dry land, Cooper devoted a lot of his energy to protesting over dolphinariums, likening the shows put on places such as Flamingo Land as a slave trade. He also apparently tried to convert the unemployed Amble miners to veganism and enlisted their support to the animals' rights movement, with little success. Miners, veganism don't really go together very well, so I can completely make sense why that didn't work out in his favor. In a pre-internet age, Cooper and his colleagues used leaflets and telephone boxes, meetings and marches to try to galvanize opposition to the leisure attraction, no doubt to the consternation of their owners, such as Bloom. The podcast, Hooked on Freddie, revolves around one particular incident, during which a boatload of people watched Cooper swim with Freddie in the harbor and reported an incident to the police. Cooper's legal team would later claim in court that Bloom encouraged them to make the complaint. Cooper describes the event on his website such as, Freddie was his usual self, sometimes hooking me with his penis to the arm or leg. It was all perfectly normal, to me at least. I realized otherwise. Bloom, the expert, had been speaking to people on the boat. Part of Bloom's police statement read, You won't get near. He is wanking off the dolphin. There is a moment in the podcast where you hear Cooper recount how the police officers who later interviewed him couldn't keep a straight face when repeating the accusation that he had been wanking off a dolphin. Did Milligan worry about listeners would make of it all? You have to get used to a bit of this language of the day, she argues. Those words were in court case. We're not being salacious. Perhaps inevitably, the story got picked up by the Sun, and suddenly rumors of a northern Cetacean fancier spread across the country in an orgy of tabloid attention. It was a titillating story of alleged perversion at a time of economic depression and political uncertainty. For Cooper, however, despite the fact that he would eventually be found not guilty and at a trial in the Crown Court, the effects were hideous. As Milligan puts it, his whole raison d'etre is helping people and looking after animals. He's from the area that's two up, two down. He left school at 16. There weren't many opportunities, but Allen had a reputation in the Northern Animal Rights Movement, and to be accused of that was the most damaging thing. It's difficult to express what that did to him, to be accused of abusing the very thing that you're trying to protect. When it comes to undermining someone's reputation, accusing them of having an indecent or sinister fetish, particularly involving an animal, is just about the most textbook move there is. Just ask Catherine the Great. As a listener, it's hard not to wonder about the motivation behind Bloom's alleged involvement in his boat's maid's accusation. Did it spring from revenge or genuine concern? Was Bloom an onlooker or an aggressor? Milligan has carried around tapes of the interview with Bloom in a bag with hundreds of other unmarked cassettes for 30 years before approaching producer Rosie Pye with the idea for the podcast. It was the tail end of Margaret Thatcher. It was very depressing, and there were a lot of people marching and protesting. That kind of era, says Milligan. Doing this podcast put me straight back in that time, and it's relevant today. We're having it so hard. The cost of living, people not being paid enough, job losses. I think we all feel a bit unanchored at the moment, and it was the same then. It felt like a shifting time. So, there you go. There's a little short story about an event I had no idea happened because I wasn't really alive that much. I was born in 94, so I wasn't alive probably for this event. But there you go. Fun cultural dip into the dolphin sex scandal.
So they just imagine other people doing it. All right. So, next story. All right. Well, more Friday news dump stories we missed. Mitt Romney has resigned from this. Is not going to run for the Senate again. He's retiring from whatever he does. As I said, nobody in the Senate does anything. But he's retiring at the spry young age of he might only be in his 80s, which is young for the Senate. So, and also, old ass people retiring. Rupert Murdoch is quitting Fox News. So if that improves it, or they shut it down, they're still being sued by Smartmatic, and apparently they just had enough of his old carcass. And those are the updates of the news dump of the week as we get on to what happened on this day in history. This day in history. September 22nd, in the year 530, Pope Felix IV died, having named Boniface II as his successor. I guess you could do that in those days. 1609, Spain, which is a country, not Span. Spain's Philip III issued a royal order for deportation of Moriscos, which is Christians of Moorish ancestry. So, whatever, did something really totally xenophobic. Way to go, douchebag. 1692. Well, he expelled the Christians of Moorish ancestry. In other words, black people.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
1692. It was to be the last executions during the Salem witch trial. 8 people were hanged. So they stopped that nonsense once and for all, you'd think, in 1692. 1776, American officer Nathan Hales hanged by the British for spying during the American Revolution, and famously said, "I regret that I can only give one life for my country," but who knows if he actually said it. In 1888, the first issue of the National Geographic magazine was published and became famous for its richly illustrated articles on the various geographic regions of the world. In 1927, on this date, Gene Tunney successfully defended his world heavyweight boxing title, defeating Jack Dempsey after the controversial long count in the 7th round. That's right, Gene Tunney was staggered on. The referee didn't start counting until late. You're supposed to count to 10, count him out. And he continued and won the fight. 1940, Jean Decoux, I can't read, Jean Decoux, the French governor of Indochina, appointed by the Vichy government after the fall of France, concluded an agreement with the Japanese that permitted the stationing of 30,000 Japanese troops in Indochina. In 1958, Italian opera tenor Andrea Bocelli was noted for his unique blend of opera and pop music was born. 1980, the Iran-Iraq War began when Iraqi armed forces invaded Western Iran along the country's joint border. Fighting continued until 1988, and a formal peace agreement was signed in 1990, and then we invaded Iraq almost immediately after that, because that's what we do here. We negotiate peace and then ruin it. In 1889, American composer Irving Berlin, who was perhaps the greatest and most enduring American songwriter, died in New York City on his day. Wow, in 1989, not 1889. Did I say 1889? In 1994, the first episode of Friends aired on NBC. The show became one of the most popular sitcoms in the United States. In 1999, the dramatic series The West Wing, which was created by Adam Sorkin, debuted on American television, enjoyed high ratings with depiction of inner workings, administration of a fictional U.S. president. Never got the hang of that show. I don't really like political intrigue movies. They bore me. 2002, hundreds of thousands of rural protesters converged on London to demonstrate in favor of fox hunting, which two years later the House of Commons banned in England and Wales. Yeah, they banned fox hunting. Because there's no wildlife left in your country. Let's kill the only thing, the only predator in the entire country. Let's hunt it to extinction. In 2015, American baseball player, manager, and coach Yogi Berra, known for won a world record 10 World Series while catcher of the New York Yankees, died at the age of 90, is known for his unintentional, amusing non sequiturs like, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded, it ain't over till it's over, stuff like that. That guy's limitations are limitless. You know, just great stuff like that. Just great stuff like that. 1990, Yogi Berra, or 1990, Yogi Berra I'm sorry, in 2015, Yogi Berra died at the age of 90 on this day. Our featured biography is Michael Faraday. Yes, you know what a farad is? It's the way we measure capacitance. Michael Faraday also invented the Faraday box, or Faraday cage, as they call it. It's a big cage to keep lightning from striking you. And he was born on September 22nd, 1791 in London, England, died on August 25th, 1867 in Richmond upon the Thames in England, which we've been to. And so Faraday was born on this day, 1791. He also featured event in 1980. Solidarity was formed. The Polish trade union and political party became a hotbed of resistance of Soviet control. Was founded on this day in 1980 when delegates of 36 unions met and united under the leadership of Lech Walesa. And again, a key event in the fall of the Soviet Union. In 1791, we did that. Today's birthdays. Ilse Koch, a German war criminal, was born in 1906. I don't know why we want to celebrate his birthday. Fuck that guy. In 1957, Nick Cave, Australian musician and author. Nick Cave, author of Red Right Hand. In 1958, Andrea Bocelli, Italian singer, was born. In 1976, Ronaldo, Brazilian soccer player, was born. And what day is it today? We already covered a couple of things. It was a few things today. It is National Brave Day. It is National Centenarians Day, which anybody that's 100, it's your day. Basically, if you're 100, it's your day every day, if you ask me. American Businesswoman's Day, September 22nd. National Brave Day, we covered that. It's the fourth Friday in September is National Brave Day. So it is be brave. National White Chocolate Day, September 22nd. It is Hobbit Day. It's also Hobbit Day, so say hi to your favorite Hobbit. National States and Capitals Day. They really overdid it. They love September 27, the day, people. It's National Ice Cream Cone Day, which we already covered. We're waiting until the end of September to have that for some reason. Dear Diary Day. So everybody make an entry. Make an entry today.
They're eating all of the leftover cones because there's no more ice cream. So like, oh, we gotta eat these cones so they don't go bad. So it's just the ice cream cones.
That's probably it. Get rid of them cones. National, yeah, all them trucks are just giving away cups all the time because nobody wants to run down their elbow. National Leg Wear Day. So get out your leg warmers. National Online Recovery Day. So I guess either you're recovering because you're an addict or you're recovering your data from the cloud. I don't know what that means. Online recovery. Could be two separate things, maybe both combined. You got so fucked up on whatever you were hooked on, and then you're recovering now, and you got to recover all the data that you lost when you were so messed up. Car Free Day. It's Car Free Day. So either means everybody's giving away free cars or no cars at all. So I think it's no cars at all. It's National Elephant Appreciation Day. So, appreciate the elephants in your life. National Girls Night also, and that is the last one of this long-ass list, which started with National American Businesswoman's Day. It ends with Girls Night Out. So that's pretty complete day. Back to you.
We've got all of the days running here.
Yep, okay. All dumping at the end of the week.
All at the end, yeah. This has been me attempting to do things. Here you go. This has been me, Allison, here from the Netherlands, who we will see you next week for some more news. And I think, that's it. That's the Friday News Dump. Feel free to request news stories that we haven't talked about for every Friday News Dump.
And this is Roger from the States, where we, before coffee, we dig below the bullshit. We don't look at the big stories that everybody's over covering. You already know that stuff. But here, we get into this stuff that's really miserable and horrible and disturbing. So you have a nice weekend. From our friends on September 22nd, which is actually the first official day of one, by the way. I got it wrong yesterday, but who cares? The planet keeps moving. It's September 22nd, 2023 on Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.